And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here with Katie Greifeld, taking you through to that closing bell with the global simulcast, and it starts right now. Jess Menton in the radio booth, Lisa Mateo by her side, Carol Massar and Tim Stenovic taking a well-unearned day off here on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms. A record-setting day potentially here, Jess, for the S&P 500, though a somewhat tepid one.
That's right. I did see a post from Carol, though, on Twitter earlier this week, X rather. She was getting some sunshine at the beach, but of course, to your point, Romaine,
yeah.
Looking at those producer prices falling to the lowest level since we saw back in April, but looking at how that's boosting the S&P, still trading with 6,500, Lisa.
All right, and this, of course, all comes after that surprise decline, right? U.S. wholesale inflation declined in August for the first time in 4 months. That's according to BLS. So the producer price index decreased 0.1% from a month earlier. So if we look at the yield space, the 2-year 3.54%, that's down a basis point. The yield on the 10-year 4.04%, that's down about 4 basis points.
That's the thing. It seemed like that was it caused a bigger ripple in the bond market than it did in the equity market, even though you had all this excitement on the day when it relates to Oracle, which I know we'll talk about. But again, comes back to tepidness, as Romaine said.
Yeah, and we should point out that most of the strength that we're seeing in equities today is basically that ripple effect from Oracle. Oracle, obviously, the biggest gainer on the day on a percentage basis, but of course, that's providing some fresh breath into names like NVIDIA, like Broadcom, as well as, of course, a lot of the energy players in that space that are being tapped, of course, to help power this AI infrastructure build out. The clapping begins and the bells start ringing here on this Wednesday afternoon. Green on the screen for the S&P 500, 65.32 and change as we wait for those numbers to settle. But no matter how they settle, it will be in the green, and that will be yet another record high. The NASDAQ composite looks like it's going to close the day basically unchanged. It looks like we're going to get a green arrow on it, up about 5 points here on the day. And I just want to double check because the NASDAQ 100 also closing in the green, but only by about 9 points. But that is good enough, believe it or not, for a record high. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is in the red, as is the Russell 2000. The Russell, guys, down 4 points or 0.2%.
Taking a check at advancers and decliners, around over 180 companies higher today, about 37% of the index, and 316 lower, or 63 roughly percent. Katie.
And let's take a look at the sector level. Interesting breakdown here. You had slightly more losers than winners when you take a look at that circle. But if you're wondering what that bright green area is, that, of course, is tech. We know it was a big day in the tech space, Oracle again, but also energy having a good day as well. Utilities, too, getting in on the action. What didn't do so hot today, consumer discretionary, your biggest loser on a percentage basis. Consumer staples as well, having a bad month and having a bad day, down about 1%.
And of course, looking at the gainers, guys, have to bring up Klarna, the buy now, pay later. Of course, we had Bailey Lipschultz in here earlier breaking it down for us. So looking at how it priced its IPO above its range and raised about $1.4 billion. So at the open, rising as much as 30%. And of course, Katie was just mentioning Oracle, OLCL here for the ticker, actually jumping at 36%. So it's the best day since December 1992. So the Wall Street Journal having that report that OpenAI signed a contract to purchase $300 billion in computing power over roughly 5 years from Oracle. And then you're looking over at other companies related to that. So Broadcom, up close to 10%. It's the best day since April 9th. So rising on the back of that. So it's kind of leading the chip sector rally there with its CEO actually talking about a potential for a big payday if he can hit challenging new targets for artificial intelligence. And then asset entities, the ticker is ASST. That's jumping, looking at 29% higher. Its best day since August 11th. And so what happened here, its shareholders did approve a Strive merger here. So looking at that stock more than doubling when you're trading there and seeing how that shakes out for the gainers there. So Lisa, what are you looking at for decliners?
Okay, decliners, I have to go to Synopsys, ticker SNPS. Their shares closed down more than 35%. A big downer. It warned that U.S. export restrictions are contributing to a slowdown in China, and that is its largest market for semiconductors. So its CEO said a couple of things. He said he would be refocusing those resources on other areas. They said they're reducing the company's headcount by 10%. Also reported things like third quarter results, showed a weak read on design IP revenue, gave an earnings outlook that was a little bit weaker than expected. I also want to point out Chewy, ticker CHWY, their shares closed down about 16%. So basically what this is, it's going to give up some profit to get a larger share of the pet supplies market. That was, even if it meant disappointing Wall Street, which it did. So it reported those second quarter results, raised its full year sale guidance, but the company backed its profitability outlook, right? It plans to reinvest those top line gains into pricing, growth drivers, like its paid membership program. I don't know. I don't have a dog. I'm allergic. So that's there you go.
Oh.
Sorry. TMI. I know. My kids ask me for dogs all the time. It's not going to happen. I quickly want to touch on HP, ticker HPQ. Their shares closed down about 1%. Basically, this is an upgrade-downgrade story. It was downgraded to inline from outperform at Evercore ISI.
Yeah, let's go take a quick look at yields right now. Basically, a drop down the curve with actually more of the activity on the longer end of the curve. And this is actually going to really play into this idea as to what's been going on with regards to inflation. That PPI report this morning, while on the top line, it did seem to show that there was some containment in the space. We should point out under the hood, when you look at wholesaler margins, you have a lot of wholesalers eating the cost of those tariffs. That means they're not passing it down to the consumer. That might bode well for the CPI report tomorrow morning. But the big question is, how much longer does that last? I do want to turn back to stocks. And before we move on to what happened with Oracle, I do just want to mention Klarna, of course, in the close on the day there. We did get a close right at that 45.82 level. So relatively successful day for the newest entrance to the market, an IPO at $40 and open today at 52 and a close just below 46.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see whether that pop extends to tomorrow and, of course, the days that follow. But let's get back to Oracle, and let's talk about Oracle through the lens of Larry Ellison, because the redhead hit the terminal this morning that Larry Ellison has become the world's richest person on the planet for the first time, ending Elon Musk's nearly year-long reign in the top spot. Now, a lot of his net worth is tied up in Oracle. We know that. And I mean, you think about today's gains, I think that netted him a cool $101 billion. So all told, that lifted his total fortune to about $393
I think what's so interesting, two things I found interesting. A, that he's never been atop the rich list in all these years. And remember, Oracle was kind of the premier, at least for data software, way back in the days. So it's kind of interesting to see that for a guy who's approaching 80, for a company that is, what, 48, 49 years old, that now, after all this time, he finally gets his flowers, all because of this ChatGPT.
It could happen to any of us. Any of us.
Could it really? Can it happen to me like today?
Yeah, come on. Or maybe.
I mean, I love you guys, but you know.
You have to wait until you're 80.
Why would my island in Hawaii? How can I?
Well, Lisa and I actually had Christine Oram on. So she's the Wealth America's team leader here at Bloomberg News.
Where does she
talking
rank
to us
on
about
the rich
that. Right. So the rich go in the function of the terminal. It was interesting, her kind of giving the context of what you were just talking about, Romaine, but then also potentially it might be a little bit short-lived that he's at top of the rankings, depending on just the massive, and when you're thinking about Elon Musk and how many companies he does own, but of course pointing out Tesla's stock still lower, down at more than 10%.
Yeah, and the whole back and forth about who's been, having the title before, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, and LVMH's Bernard Arnault, and the whole back and forth of what happens. I mean, Elon became the first time 2021, so now the torch is handed off to yet another.
And also just for our viewers here, I mean, this report, we talk a lot about just the big pop in the stock and, of course, the wealth creation for Larry Ellison and his family. But we should point out this really was a ratification of a lot of the CapEx spend that we've seen in this space. And if you believe those numbers, there's a lot more to come. And it's a big part of the reason why you saw the CoreWeaves and Dells and HPEs and pretty much that entire AI ecosystem move higher. One interesting note, though, if you look at the application software companies out there, they all plunged today. Oracle's old business, that data software business, that's actually in decline. I'm sure they're fine with that, but also something to keep an eye on there.